Hey everyone, welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Let's go back to 1986. That's the year when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted its first batch of musicians. Among them, the iconic Ray Charles, Buddy Holly, and of course, Elvis Presley. Tina Turner was also receiving praise in California, where her star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame was revealed. And if you turned on the radio, there's a good chance you'd hear Madonna's #1 hit, Papa Don't Preach. But now, let's tune into the conversations the MPPs were having in Question Period.
Oral questions, the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Premier and in the absence of the Minister of Health, I have a question for the Attorney General, the Minister responsible for OMA negotiations. Yesterday, the Minister of Health said that he could not see any advantage in appointing a mediator to end or to try and end the current dispute. He said that he was doing that mainly because he had not received such a request from the OMA. Yet a couple of weeks ago, the Premier himself apparently entertained the idea of appointing a mediator. I wonder if the Attorney General could indicate, as a measure of good faith, whether he would recommend to his government that a call now go to the OMA suggesting a mediator be brought in to end the current service.
Attorney General.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the Leader for the question, but it's wrongly directed. The two people who can answer that question are referred to in the very question, namely the Premier and the Minister of Health. They're both on public business elsewhere today, and I'll see to it that they get notice of the question and can reply to the Leader at the first available opportunity.
Supplementary.
My question to the Attorney General is this. We're on the brink of major chaos in the healthcare system. The Minister of Health, and the Premier.
Don't you doubt it. Remember that on Friday.
Order. 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 Supplementary.
We are indeed on the brink of a potential crisis in the healthcare system. You report that the Premier and the Minister of Health are both away on urgent public business. I put it to on public business.
By way of supplementary.
I put it to the Attorney General, there is no matter of more public import to the citizens of this province than the pending crisis and chaos in the healthcare system, which may start as early as this Thursday, and neither the Premier nor the Minister...
Order. 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 Supplementary.
My question to the Attorney General, and we request an answer today, not tomorrow and not Thursday, but today. Will you, as the person who has negotiated up front with the OMA, this afternoon pick up the phone and suggest that the OMA consider the option of a mediator so that you may discuss that option at Cabinet tomorrow?
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be delighted, as I said, to bring the Honourable Leader's question and concern to the attention of the Minister of Health. I think I should make one other observation, and that in response to the question, and that is this, that the government has introduced the bill to which the Honourable Member refers in an effort to comply with the Canada Health Act, which was passed by a unanimous federal parliament, including the Conservative Party. That act has been complied with, or will be complied with shortly, in 8 other provinces, including Alberta and British Columbia. We are attempting to comply with that act in this province. It is a difficult moment for government for the medical profession, for whom I have the highest professional regard, and for the citizens of the province. And the kind of extravagant assertion that the Leader of the Opposition makes is not conducive to an orderly resolution of the problem.
Final supplementary.
It is the height of hypocrisy for the Attorney General to stand there and now pretend that he's fond of the medical profession, that he's been criticized
Supplementary.
for months. Now, my question to the Attorney General is this. He's decided that he can now answer questions in the House on this matter when he wants to put up a defense for his government's mean-spirited attempt to destroy the medical profession in this province. Since he's been willing to begin to answer questions, I put this question to him on the brink of chaos in the healthcare system. Will you, having put up this spirited defense of your determination to push through 94, will you call the OMA and suggest a mediator now be appointed to try and resolve this dispute?
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, on all issues of hypocrisy, I concede the field to an expert. I don't think that kind of language is useful. My friend obviously thinks it is useful in parliamentary debate. I don't. My answer to the question is the answer I gave before, that I will bring the honourable leader's concerns immediately to the attention of the Minister of Health, who has a statutory responsibility in these matters, not I.
New question. The member for Leeds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for those of us on this side of the House who read the Red Star this morning, probably not too many, but a few of us did. And those that did, we're not surprised. We're not surprised by the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations surprise on learning that Suncor was raising its wholesale prices for gasoline. This minister has almost totally ignored consumer concerns about gas prices, and in his one foray into the area, he was led down the garden path. Mr. Speaker, in respect to the Suncor announcement, given that the government now has 2 Liberal appointees on the board of directors of Suncor, how can a minister feign ignorance and only wring his hands in dismay?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address the member and just read something to him. And it says, gasoline prices are set by competitive prices in the marketplace. Obviously, those guys over there do not believe in the free marketplace. Government intervention is their answer to everything. Big Brother has to be involved in every facet of our lives. That, Mr. Speaker, was said by the former Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations, the member from Leeds.
Oh, well. Order. 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 Again, I will remind the members, you're wasting your own time. I can stand here as long as you want. No. Order. Supplementary, the member for Leeds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe that then and I believe it now, and I have not suggested government intervention. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that it's interesting. Yes, it's interesting to know, it's interesting to learn what this minister's high-paid staff are doing, going through dusty files of 81 speeches. Instead of dealing with the real issues that concern in this province, that's what he's doing with his staff.
Order. 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 I was going to say, is that your question? Is that what the staff is doing? Well, quickly, supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I said it's apparent this minister's been duped and conned even by his own company. Yesterday he implied he would do nothing more. Why will the minister not follow the advice of his own premier, as outlined in a release last year, and order an immediate investigation and legislate prior disclosure of increases to stop this collusion and rip-off of Ontario consumers?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the member liked the last one, he'll love this one. Again, I quote, again, it is a question of protecting consumers. We in Ontario do not regulate the price of gasoline. The price of gasoline at the pump is a matter of free market principles, and although that might offend the philosophy of the member, that is the situation. That, by the way, the member from Lincoln.
Final. Order. 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 I'll just wait. Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, this minister is a joke and nothing less than a joke. He's treating this whole House with contempt. He won't even deal with this issue. The minister has a sorry history in dealing with this issue, a crucial one. He has ignored my calls for action on Imperial Oil's moves to end dealer support. He's been made to look foolish by the oil companies. Now he's been rabbit-punched by Suncor. Will the minister finally take charge of this issue in a serious manner and order a public inquiry?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have one final quotation. This says, in effect, dated May the 20th, 1983, if the member is suggesting that we hold a public inquiry, I think he is talking about wasting taxpayers' money by such duplication. That by the Honorable Bob Elgee.
Order. Order. We're going to recess for 5 minutes. New question, the member for York South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations.
After the medical interlude.
After the brief medical interlude, he should be aware that he has said some funny things too, and I'd like just to quote, but he hasn't said them a long time ago. He said them over the last couple of days. And I'd like to ask the Minister, he says, and I'm quoting from the Toronto Star, May the 27th, Mr. Speaker, my concern is, they say, presumably they means the oil companies say, the price of oil has gone up and cheap inventories are running low. That just doesn't square with what they said before. End of quote. And then in Toronto Sun of May the 26th, it says, when the price goes up like that overnight, it just doesn't seem right to me. End of quote.
Question.
I wonder, Mr. Speaker, can the Minister tell us these rather sad, plaintive comments that he's made? I wonder if he can just tell us just precisely what does he intend to do to protect the consumers of this province from being gouged? Just what are you going to do?
Mr. Speaker, I listened with interest to the member of the third party, and he stated that I had said some pretty funny things, and any of those statements that he quoted weren't funny at all. And I'm really quite concerned. The member should understand that the oil companies claim that it takes 75 to 100 days for oil to go through the system. As a result of that, by the end of April, beginning of May, we should see the effects of low-cost oil. The prices did drop down to the 36, 37 cent per liter price. they have now suddenly shot up. I am very concerned about that, and if you'll see the statements that I made in the House yesterday and the quotes, I am looking into it. I've asked the Minister of Energy to check with Suncor where we have some interest. We don't have controlling interest, and we don't have absolute control, but I'm very concerned about it, and that's why we're making the statements that we are.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, my question was, what are you going to do? And I'd like to ask the minister now that he should know that a spokesman for Imperial Oil was reported recently as the Globe was saying, and I'm quoting, "I think somebody decided it was time to come up for air. The industry was losing its shirt before prices were raised." I wonder, is the minister aware that for the year ending 1985, Imperial Oil's profits were $634 million, up 19% over 1984? That's a pretty expensive shirt. Some shirt, some neck. I'd like to ask the minister, what does he intend to do? What steps precisely does he intend to take to see that prices start to come down? And why don't you have the power to do that right now?
Mr. Speaker, I don't have the power to do that because we in the province don't regulate the price of fuel. But having said that, the problem is this. We're dealing with companies that are vertically integrated. We have no way of knowing if they use creative accounting methods where they allocate charges upstream or downstream, and that's the thing that I'm looking into. I've asked Pat Carney, the Minister of Energy, to look into it. I've asked Michelle Cote, the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, to look into see whether under the Combines and Competition Act there's anything that can be done. That is the jurisdiction. That is where we are addressing our concern.
Final supplementary, the member for Welland Thorold.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say to the minister, he may have made the Tories make an ass out of themselves, but I want to say to you that that doesn't bring you any credit on what is happening in gasoline prices in this
Final
province.
supplementary.
I'd like to ask you that now that you have criticized the 2-cent increase and said the federal government and oil companies should take some form of concrete action, isn't that in itself an admission on your part that competition isn't working? And if it is not, then why don't you intervene and protect the consumers of this province?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member raises an interesting point, but so far in all of the debate, not one person has been able to tell me that in fact the pricing is not justified. I'm not saying that it is, but no one on the other side, either parties, has said to me that the price isn't justified. And what we are trying to do is find out if in fact those prices are justified.
New question. The member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Premier, I'd like to ask the Treasurer, with respect to Ontario's involvement with corporations that are doing business and extensive business in South Africa. The Treasurer will know that Bishop Tutu will be addressing this legislature on Friday, and so far we have had no report from the government with respect to a basic statement of policy with respect to South Africa. We've had no indication of what steps are going to be taken on OMERS, no indication of what's going to be done with respect to the Ontario Hospital Association and hospitals that are purchasing from South Africa. I'd like to ask the Treasurer, are we going to get such a statement from this government? And does he not realize that in the absence of that statement, the government, if I may say so, looks pretty silly inviting the bishop to speak to this assembly and speak to this legislature when it has not done all that it could do to make the kind of statement that I know members would want to make with respect to South Africa.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member and his colleagues, I think, have placed 3 questions to the ministers and to the Premier on this important matter. I believe the answer came from the Minister of Agriculture yesterday that no South African tobacco was imported into Ontario or used in the Ontario market, and Rothmans had given us their assurance that that was the case. They were the only ones who might have been involved. Secondly, the honourable member, I think himself, referred to Dominion Securities Pitfield and McLeod Young Weir doing business with South Africa. I'm informed that that those 2 companies were part of a syndicate selling some bonds or financial certificates for the a German bank. They had less than 0.1%, and those sales were completed in 1984, and as a matter of policy, they inform us they do no such business either here or elsewhere at the present time. The reference also was to the OMERS board, And the information that we have is that in their extensive holdings, and their very large holdings indeed, that there are some securities which are associated with businesses that have investments in South Africa. That I am informed that the OMERS board is reviewing their policy in that regard, and I want to make it clear that the policy of this government, as enunciated by the Premier at the time when he indicated that we were no longer buying the products for the Liquor Control Board of Ontario from South Africa, was not to do business as a government.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, with respect to OMERS, it is not simply a question of a few securities. It's a question of investments both in Canadian companies and with respect with American companies that are doing significant business with South Africa, and I think the Treasurer should know that. Can he tell us what is the position of the Government of Ontario? What is his position with respect to OMERS, since he, as I understand it, was asked specifically by the Premier in the House to undertake the investigation and to undertake a declaration, as I took it at that time, of what the position of the Government of Ontario was. Can he tell us, has he directed OMERS to take steps to divest itself of those shares and of those securities, and if not, why not?
Treasurer.
Let's deal with the other matter first. The information that I have has been presented to the Premier as he requested, and if he had been here today, he may have been able to bring it to the honourable member's attention in response to the question, but I can't speak for him. The information, however, requested has been placed in his hands as of today. The whole matter of OMERS is not as clear as the honourable member would have the House believe, that there is a question, as a matter of fact, a clear legal opinion, that we can control OMERS only through the appointment of board members. That's, of course, a good way to control, I suppose, indirectly, but the board is presently in place, and they have indicated they are reviewing their investments, and I expect them to make a report to me and to the Premier and to the House when that information is available.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the OMERS board has been quoted as saying that the divestment of South African-related holdings could take up to 4 or 5 years. I wonder, is the Treasurer aware of that statement, and can he explain why that would be the case with respect to shares which are sellable at any time? And we've gone through the shares that are listed on the stock exchange, and the government, the OMERS, would realize a very substantial profit from simply divesting itself of those shares today, and only in 3 of the stocks are selling below the price at which they were purchased. I wonder if the Treasurer would not agree that profiting from apartheid has gone on long enough, and that a policy of divestiture on the part of OMERS and other publicly controlled pension funds and a clear policy with respect to hospitals is entirely in order now.
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I was not aware of the comment made by the chairman. It may be that in his judgment as the chairman of the group that has the trusteeship over those investments, that he might be concerned that he was not, that by dumping them in that way that the price might not be as good as it otherwise would be. However, as I say, the review that they have undertaken will surely report on that point of view as well.
New question, the Leader of the Opposition.
I have a question for the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. On January 4th, 1985, your leader issued a press release saying fuel prices were a ripoff. It went on to say, quote, "The current fuel price increase demonstrates the need for Ontario to consider requiring prior disclosure by the oil companies when they intend to raise prices. Such a disclosure process would allow the Ontario government and the public an opportunity to examine and make input into the decisions on important matters of fuel pricing." My question for the Minister is a simple one. Do you still endorse the proposal put forward on January 4th, 1985 by your leader?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in principle I do. The problem that we have, and members on all parties will know, because they've all been quoted as saying it, that the price is really set in the marketplace. The stories that the oil companies have, and I'm not defending them because I don't know if it's true or not, and that's what I'm trying to find out, but their story is that the prices in Metro have been unduly depressed because of a price war, and that their prices that they're at now is where they should be, reflecting their lower cost of fuel. What I don't know, and I have no way of finding out just by asking them, because all I have to do is take their word for it, is whether or not they can justify that. That is what we're trying to find out.
Supplementary.
Well, you see, the minister indicates he has no way of finding out what the true story is. That was precisely the thrust of your leader's press release on January 4th, which is that no one has a way of knowing what's happening without a review such as the one conducted by Nova Scotia's Public Utilities Board. Well, if you are as concerned as you've said you are the last few weeks, if you're so determined to, quote, make noises and get the prices down, surely you would agree that you must know what's going on, and surely you would agree to stand by, not in principle, but in fact, the press release of January 4th, 1985.
Minister?
Do you or don't you stand
Minister?
by this? Are you going to follow it?
Mr. Speaker, as I said, I do in principle. Two things happen. Number one, the Ministry of Energy really have the analysts and the people who can take a look at that figure and see whether or not there is any justification. It's very difficult because of the vertical integration of the industry. Secondly, when you refer to Nova Scotia has legislation, and notwithstanding their legislation, they've got the highest priced fuel in Canada.
Right on.
New question. The member for Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Energy. The Minister will be aware that as a result of the nuclear accident in Chernobyl and as a result of new information last week, that the safety features on that Chernobyl reactor are much more extensive than originally reported. Major reviews of not only new nuclear power stations in the U.S., but existing and operating power plants in the U.S. are being undertaken. Can the Minister tell the House what plans he has to review the nuclear program in the province of Ontario with a view to determining the safety of our reactors?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that initiative, of course, has been taken a good long time ago when the safety of our reactors was put on the plate of the special committee. I'm sure that if you read that report, you'll find that CANDU reactors came up, in a sense, by comparison, among the safest in the world. Now, I'm not suggesting that after the kind of experience that we've had worldwide that we are not going to take a second look now and make absolutely certain that there hasn't been any movement from that situation. I suppose the thing that might be said also is that the reactor at Chernobyl could not have been licensed in Canada, and I think that says a great deal about the Atomic Energy Control Board in Ottawa as another measure of making certain of the safety of the reactors here in Canada.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister should be aware that it is unlikely that the Pickering reactor would now be licensed in Canada. And in view of the fact that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States now believes that the likelihood of a major meltdown accident in the U.S. in the next 20 years is about 50%, and in view of the fact that we've never had a major study by experts of the nuclear power program in the province of Ontario, when are you going to make up your mind to look into the nuclear safety of our reactors in the province of Ontario?
Yeah, good question. Mr. Speaker, I have no quarrel about looking into the questions that are raised by the honourable member. I have no reason to defend in any way beyond a reasonable assessment of the circumstance the CANDU reactors in Ontario. The major number of CANDU reactors, of course, being here in Ontario, generating some 9,000 megawatts of power that goes into our grid, which is a little better than a third right now. The member makes a good point, and you can rest assured that we would continue to monitor and take direction from all members in this legislature as to what we should be doing to make absolutely certain that CANDU reactors are as safe as can be.
New question. The member for St. George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Minister of Agriculture. Minister, last week you assured this House that with a product of 300 million apples produced in this province each year, and after your government tested 2 apples, that there was no problem with dioxin, even though Kate Davies in a Toronto Board of Health report indicated to the contrary. My question to you, sir, is, will you take these 2 Ontario McIntosh apples and put them in for testing to double your test sample and for the first time take seriously the testing of dioxin in foodstuffs in this province?
Minister. Order. 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 Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The former Minister of Environment is well aware of the fact that it's impossible in this world to have perfectly pure food. She knows that there have been dioxins probably in our atmosphere ever since man first rubbed 2 sticks together. Dioxin.
Order. Order.
Dioxin. The honorable member is aware that dioxin is a product of combustion and that it's found everywhere in the world in our atmosphere. Now, I find it somewhat peculiar that the former Minister of the Environment would criticize my staff for taking the initiative to test foods for dioxin when that very same Minister of Environment never conducted one test on any food product for dioxin.
Order. Order. Supplementary, the member for Durham York.
Yes, we also import a lot of apples into Ontario, and I have 2 imported apples. What information does the minister have on the contamination of such apples, and would he now triple the size of a study and see what confidence he can give the people of Ontario with this size of a sample?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
Order.
I'm pleased.
Order. Minister.
Speaker, I'm pleased that the honorable member raised the concern that we have about the importation of commodities from outside of the jurisdiction that have perhaps been treated with some kind of chemical that we don't allow in this country. And there's no question that the report of Dr. Davies can somewhat be held to question because we aren't certain that the apples that they tested out of the grocery stores here in Ontario are Ontario-produced apples. We strongly suspect that the apples which were tested were apples which were imported from outside of this province.
New question. Order. Order.
Try to discredit.
New question, the member for Sudbury East.
A question of the Minister of Labour regarding the PCBs at Westinghouse Beach Road plant in Hamilton. And since you haven't been very aggressive with fatalities, we'll find it's even less aggressive in prosecution of toxic substances. Since the Minister of the Environment, I say to the Minister,
since the Minister of the Environment provides protective equipment and respirators when workers are working around PCB spills, can the Minister tell me why it took his staff 3 months after the initial complaint by the union in August of '84 to get even an acknowledgement of the problem, another 4 months to get in there, do the testing, and give the results to the workers, and why it took a year after that, with the word forthwith on the order, to force the company to comply with an order which they've ignored to this time.
Minister.
Well, I noted from the member's question, Mr. Speaker, that this matter, according to the member, started back in 1984. Obviously, this government wasn't in power then. This minister wasn't minister then, and I can tell the honourable member, as the honourable member knows, that in those days these orders were reissued. I do note that the honourable member has talked about a forthwith order. I will check into the matter and find out. It appears that the matter should have been either dealt with by a specific, as it is now, by a specific compliance date when the order cannot be complied with forthwith, or it should have been complied with forthwith, but I want to get the honourable member a complete and full answer.
Supplementary?
Well, when you're doing that, would you look at the time when you became responsible? Because is the minister aware that on March 7th, '86, one of your inspectors recommended that a notice of intent under Section 37 of the Act for non-compliance be proceeded with, and that means prosecution. That's 18 months now in the works, and since that time, March the 7th, in fact, there has, having given the notice, you still haven't decided whether you will prosecute. And at the same time, while you're looking at it, will you tell me why the 20 workers who have cancer, 13 of them who've died, haven't received and are not receiving compensation benefits?
Well, Mr. Speaker, on the second part of the question, I think we're really back to the same matters that we were discussing last week, and I can refer that matter on to the WCB for an answer. It would have to be found that the matters are compensable because they occurred in the course of and arising out of their employment, and the honourable member and I would agree that is the basis on which they must be found. Now, as far as prosecutions are concerned, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows very clearly what the prosecution policy is. He has a copy of it. Matters move forward, and I agree with the honourable member's date. Notice was given under Section 37 on March the 7th of this year. I'm sure that the honourable member would agree with me that it would be most appropriate if there is to be an information sworn, if it were sworn, and that the first people to know would be those it is sworn against. I don't intend, Mr. Speaker, to discuss the status of prosecutions in this House until such time as informations are sworn. But given the volume that is coming forward to our legal branch, I will indicate to the honourable member that some 2 months for the matter to work its way up the line is not an inappropriate amount of time.
The Minister of Northern Development has a response to a question previously asked by a member.
Mr. Speaker, in response to a question last week from the member of Algoma, I want to announce the date and location for public forums to discuss the north-south gas price issue. They are June the 16th, Kirkland Lake, June the 17th, Sault Ste. Marie, June the 18th, Chapleau, June the 19th, Sudbury, June the 20 juin, North Bay, June the 23rd, Thunder Bay, June the 24th, Kenora, June the 25th, Red Lake. Staff of my ministry and the Minister of Energy will be on hand at each session. In addition, I will be attending a meeting of the Northeast Municipal Action Group in Timmins on May the 31st for discussion on this topic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Can the minister indicate who the hearing officer will be, or hearing officers? What are the exact terms of reference of the task force, if that's what it is? And can he assure the House that after he has these hearings, his ministry and this government will take action to lower the price of gasoline in Northern Ontario and not simply take the attitude of his colleague, the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations, with regard to the price of gasoline?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, the answer for the other question, I'll have to come back because you asked me on the dates. The term of reference, I haven't got it by heart, and the name of the officers, I don't know. So I'll be back to you on this one. Then I wish you participate in those open house meetings and to give your experience of 10 or 15 years in the House of fighting on those high price of gas in the north. Thank you.
New question, the member for Oakville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, in North Bay, an urgent situation exists at the District Courthouse. The building is falling down, and in fact it has been condemned every year for the last 5 years. Our government committed to the building of a $12 million new facility, which was to commence in the spring of 1985, which the Attorney General well knows. The Minister's colleague, however, the chairperson for Management Board, canceled that contract. Later in last year, the Attorney General confirmed that the building would commence within fiscal year 85-86. Of course, it has not commenced. Will the Attorney General now advise this House of his updated timetable to his commitment to the people of North Bay? Attorney General.
Well, this is my commitment, as the honourable member knows, Mr. Speaker, to the member for North Bay. And I've responded to this question from time to time. The fiscal year in which we indicated the exercise would commence is not yet completed. What has happened is that in order to meet the desire of some citizens of North Bay who are anxious to preserve the old courthouse as a historic building, as indeed it is, they are looking at whether it can be incorporated within the design of the new courthouse. That question, of course, has to be determined before the project goes ahead. We hope to have the answer to that question, whether it can be incorporated, very shortly. If it can, we hope it will be. If it cannot, we will proceed.
Supplementary.
By way of supplementary, Mr. Speaker, the Minister knows well that the commitment was to a new court facility to commence last year, and he has not done so. Let's try another courthouse. In St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker, victims, witnesses, and the accused await their trials in a small hearing room, 15 feet by 15 feet.
That's right.
It's page 26. Page 26 in the briefing book.
Supplementary.
There's no police protection for victims and witnesses who must occupy the same room. Witness intimidation, in fact, fist fights.
Supplementary.
Fist fights occasionally break out in this room, Mr. Speaker. What is the timetable for the people of St. Thomas that the Minister has to alleviate this very serious problem in that city?
Well, I couldn't hear the question, Mr. Speaker, so my answer is it's unlikely.
What is the timetable for the St. Thomas facility?
The St. Thomas facility is an old historic courthouse, as are all the courthouses.
We want to preserve.
As are all the courthouses for which the Conservative government was entirely responsible. And we are faced in this province, as those who follow these matters will know, with the fact that almost nothing was done for 35 years in this province to update our courthouse facilities. It may not be pleasant, but you know, it's true. Now, what we are doing is we have speeded up our capacity to respond to these needs so that we will be able to make more courthouse starts every year than our predecessors ever did, and we will be able to make more renovation starts than our predecessors ever did. Well, you know, there's no point trying to answer the question if they won't listen to the answer.
Well, then I'll call for a new question. New question, the member for Hamilton East.
I have a question for the Treasurer in the absence of the Premier of Ontario. Treasurer will be aware of the slap in the face that Prime Minister Mulroney received from his good buddy, Mr. Regan, with the devastating 35% tariff on Western cedar products, almost on the day that the free trade talks were to start. And I think you'll also be aware of the irrefutable evidence that Canada's social policies, as well as the Auto Pact, is on the table. Is the Treasurer prepared to reverse his government's endorsation of the Mulrooney Initiative and end this very dangerous charade that Mr. Mulrooney is engaged in.
Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, I think you're aware that the policy of the government is to support any initiative that's going to improve and enhance our trading relations with the United States and other trading partners. I think the Premier, more than anyone else, has pointed out the pitfalls and problems associated with the concept of free trade and its negotiation. That it was he at the First Minister's meeting in Halifax, soon after this government took office, it was he who brought forward his concerns on behalf of the manufacturing industry, the agriculture industry, the resource industry, and those associated with finance, the culture, and those aspects of Canadian endeavor that in many respects find their principal manifestation in this province. That he's indicated quite clearly through reports that he has tabled that employment levels would be seriously jeopardized, and I don't think the honourable member or anyone else can place him among those who are enthusiastically supporting the federal initiative in this regard.
Supplementary.
One has to wonder then, Mr. Speaker, why his members endorsed the initiative in the interim report. Since the Premier clearly understands the devastation that could be caused by the Auto Pact being on the table in the province of Ontario, and before these so-called bilateral talks expose any more sore points between our two countries, will the Treasurer end his party's charade of pretending in this House that he won't accept a bad deal and release all of the studies that he has unedited and provide the leadership Canadian people want in ending the stupidity of these bilateral trade talks continuing in Washington?
Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, I'm not aware that the Premier of this province or any other has the power to veto initiatives taken by the federal government, but in statements that I heard made by the Prime Minister himself at Halifax, he indicated that the negotiators for Canada would be in close consultation with the representatives of the province, and one of the things the Premier is insisting on, and I'm not speaking for him to say whether he's satisfied, and I doubt if he is, that this close consultation is in fact taking place. That certainly it's been, as you say, a slap in the face to everyone when we realize that this special duty was slapped on by presidential authority on the very day that the discussions began.
The Minister of Labour has a response to a question previously asked by the member for Sudbury East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Thursday last, the member for Sudbury East asked a number of questions concerning prosecutions under the Act. It appears the numbers that he mentioned refer to prosecutions rising out of the activities of the IHSB during the fiscal year that just ended. During that period of time, there were 75 cases in which charges were laid and 56 in which convictions were obtained. There were, however, in the 75 cases, a total of 292 charges laid, and that is typically the legal branch may lay more than one charge arising out of any incident, but when the matter comes to trial, it is only possible to obtain a conviction on one charge because of the legal principle that a person can't receive convictions arising out of the same transaction. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member asked why a union witness was not called to testify in the Purley Hospital case. I want to advise the House, Mr. Speaker, that there were extensive communications between the Ministry and the union prior to the trial. The union wrote to the Ministry describing its understandings of the relevant facts and supplied it with two witness statements. Both witnesses recommended by the trade union as well as others were called at the trial.
New question. The member for Mississauga East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and it's regarding his statement in the House on December 19, 1985, to proceed with an amendment to the Municipality of Metropolitan Toronto Act affecting airport taxicabs and limousines. I'm aware that the Minister, in a meeting with the Mayor of Mississauga, Hazel McCallion, on April 22, 1986, indicated he was not going ahead with the proposed amendment. However, I have a letter signed by the Minister dated May the 12th, 1986, in response to my letter of some 3 months earlier, indicating he is proceeding with the proposed amendment. My question to the Minister is, are you or are you not proceeding with the legislation, or do we have to read between the lines, as the Minister has answered on previous occasions?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm quite aware of the letter that the member is referring to, but I'd like him to read all of the letter and not 2 or 3 lines. I guarantee the Mayor of Mississauga that I will not proceed with the present legislation until I receive the report from Mississauga and from the City of Toronto and Metro as well.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, through you, the minister seems to be doing some sort of one of these moonwalks where you move rapidly backwards, appearing to move forward. Now, which way is it, Mr. Minister? Because I'm very clear on the impression that you gave Mayor Hazel McCallion, and I'm also very clear on what you said in your letter. Are you or are you not? And if you decide whichever way, sir, will you guarantee me that you will consider the opinions of the City of Mississauga and not just restrict yourself to those opinions of the Council of Metropolitan Toronto?
Mr. Speaker, the member is very badly misinformed because I've already met with the Mayor of Mississauga. You're badly misinformed. Badly. Let me reassure you of this. I've already met with the Mayor of Mississauga on 2 different occasions, Mr. Speaker. I've spoken to her last Friday. I've met with the City of Toronto. I've met with Metro, the taxi industry, the livery, and the limousine people. You were the only one that didn't attend the meeting. Let me tell you that I did consult my people and also the representative of Metro from your own party. So consultation is still going on, but you're badly misinformed.
New question? Point of privilege?
On this point of privilege, the minister is telling me that I did not attend any of these meetings. No, I didn't, sir, because you didn't have the courtesy to invite me as a member.
Order, it's not. Order. It's. Order. Order, it's not a point of privilege. It may be a point of information. New question. The member for Essex North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of the Environment. The landfill site number 3 in the township of Maidstone has been operating under a certificate issued by the Ministry of the Environment. The certificate specified that the depth to bury garbage in that landfill site was 10 feet and the height to be 20 feet above ground. But the garbage has been buried 28 feet deep and piled 42 feet high above ground level. And it's obvious that the Ministry of the Environment has condoned this action and also allowed toxic waste to be dumped into that particular site. What action is the Minister of the Environment going to take with the people responsible in his ministry who allowed this action to take place, or these violations to take place?
Minister?
I can tell the member that, referring to that particular site, that the number 3 committee is committed to conducting a thorough test of the landfill site to determine what, if any, toxic chemicals are present. So there is that commitment that has been made. In addition, the ministry will conduct its own sampling and analysis as a means of auditing the county's particular program in that regard. The member would know that during the construction of boreholes, pockets of sand were found, and the potential impact the sand will have on groundwater is being assessed by both the consultants and the ministry staff to determine precisely what that effect would be. My ministry is investigating the situation, and certainly if conditions warrant, we are certainly prepared to press charges.
Supplementary?
I think the minister is trying to attempt to answer the question I asked, I believe it was on May the 12th. But the minister has just mentioned that he is aware of the problems concerning toxic substances and also the finding of, or the discovery of sand seams. Now there is a move on to dump sewage. Move on to the question. Yes. There is a move on to dump sewage sludge in this particular site in the township of Maidstone. Will the minister take immediate action to ward off any move to dump raw sewage on this site?
Minister.
I thank the member for that particular question because it draws an important additional fact to our attention, and I will be pleased to investigate that at the earliest opportunity, which is today, and report back to the member.
New New question, the member for Wellington, Dufferin, Peel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Minister of Transportation and Communication. As the Minister is well aware, the Motor Vehicle Licensing Bureau in the village of Erin has been closed. The Erin Downtown Business Association and Municipal Council have requested that your ministry give consideration to reopening this office, which has served Erin and area for many, many years. The question is, would the Minister reconsider his decision to close this office if it can be demonstrated that there is substantial community support for the need for this bureau in the village of Erin?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as is our practice and policy, whereby we attempt to support all of the local communities in Ontario, the answer is yes, we would reconsider it if it can be shown to be financially viable.
Supplementary.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Would the Minister then accept this petition that I hold in my hand as a demonstration of the community support? This petition contains signatures of more than 1,500 residents of Erin and surrounding area requesting that the Bureau be reopened and expressing very serious concern that the quality of life in this rural community will deteriorate if this essential service is not restored.
Minister?
I think the member's question, Mr. Speaker, was would I accept the petition, and of course I would accept the petition. Thank you.
New question, the member for Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of the Environment. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that all members will have been very interested in the course of the last couple of days to hear the Minister of the Environment tell the CBC, the press, and the UN Environmental Commission that he hoped by the end of this session of the legislature to have in place stiffer fines and stronger penalties against those who pollute the environment. I would like to have the Minister tell the House when we might expect to see that legislation and participate in the discussion that he's having.
As I have indicated to the member, I think, in the House, and I'm sure she will correct me if I'm wrong. She usually does. If I am wrong, she lets me know. But my recollection is that I have on many occasions, including in this House, indicated that I will be bringing forward this legislation and that it will be in this particular session of the legislature. The member would know as well that these pieces of legislation must go through various cabinet committees in order that they may be assessed from a regulations point of view. For instance, Regulations Committee, the Justice Committee, Economic Policy Committee. There are a number of committees that legislation of this kind must go through. And I would say that we will see it certainly this session, I hope next month.
Supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Minister is having difficulty in persuading his Cabinet colleagues to accept his legislation, I wish he'd share that with the House and we would do what we could to help him. I thought, Mr. Speaker,
That's your question.
all legislation required approval of various committees on the government side, and I would like to have the Minister explain to the House why there are now 41 pieces of legislation, government legislation, pending before this House, and not one of them has stemmed from his ministry.
Minister?
Well, first of all, to clarify, because the member misinterpreted what I said, I'm not deliberately. I think she drew a conclusion from my answer, Mr. Speaker, and it was not an accurate conclusion. In fact, there is outstanding and tremendous and unanimous support in this cabinet for this legislation. You're supposed to apply. And for that reason, I can assure her that we will see this legislation this session, and I think she will be pleased with this legislation. In regard to a number of other environmental matters, she would understand as well that much of which we can do, for instance, if I can give one small example, Mr. Speaker, one small example, but the acid rain program we brought in, it was done by regulation and did not require legislation. So you'll find that in so many areas that we are able to move without legislation. This is one that requires legislation, and you're going to see it soon.
Order. New question, the member for Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the Minister of Transportation and Communications. Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, April the 30th, my colleague, the member from Mississauga East, requested that the Minister of Transportation and Communication act promptly to reduce the waiting time of up to 4 months for driver road tests. What has the Minister done in the last 4 weeks to help clean up the backlog in road tests in Eastern Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I can tell the member that as recently as this morning I met with my staff to review the practices and policies involving the licensing issuing agents and agencies. It's not all that easy to find people in response to the previous question. When I toured the riding of Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, among the municipalities I talked to were, I think, 19 in that riding, and it's interesting to note that none of them, Mr. Speaker, brought this particular concern to our attention, but I assure the honourable member that I will personally take it upon myself to address the issue he's raised.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a very serious problem. There are backlogs of up to 4 months. Would you please assure this House, Mr. Minister, that you will ensure that no one has to wait more than 30 days to have a road test? Would you please ensure this House today?
Well, Mr. Speaker, with respect, the waiting period there and any other location in this province is certainly not something that we created in the last 10 or 11 months. It's a matter that should clearly have been addressed. It should clearly have been addressed by the previous administration, and as I can assure the member, because of my interest in the issue, I went to the riding. I toured the riding on a weekend, and we will certainly undertake his request, Mr. Speaker.
Time for oral questions has expired.